I need a publicly humili bag. Go drag that skinny black girl in here.
Craig Brennan, 4th degree black belt, biggest combat gym in Southern Virginia, said it loud. 30 students laughed.
I came about the community center lease, but
Lease?
He flicked a glove at her face.
Trash like you got no business talking to me. You came to scam money back to that little shelter of yours, didn't you?
He grabbed her arm, dragged her onto the mat.
Only thing you're good for is entertainment. Fight me!
I didn't come here to fight.
Too late. You're already on my mat.
Her name was Whitney Ford, 42, ran a free self-defense class across town. Quiet life, no trophies on display. She didn't pull away, didn't say a word. What happened next would ruin Craig Brennan in ways he never saw coming. Have you ever destroyed something you couldn't rebuild? Whew. Before you judge what she did next, you need to know who Whitney Ford really was. And nobody did. Millfield, Virginia, population just under 9,000. The kind of town where everybody knows your car before they know your name. Main Street had a barber shop, a dollar store, and a church with a cracked parking lot. On the east side, the side nobody talked about at town meetings, sat the Millfield Community Center. A flat-roofed building with peeling paint and a front door that stuck when it rained. That's where Whitney Ford spent her evenings. 3 nights a week, she pushed the plastic chairs against the wall and rolled out old gym mats. No ring, no mirrors, no fancy equipment, just a room, a clock, and whoever showed up. Her students were single mothers, nurses working double shifts, teenage girls who walked home alone at night, women who had reasons to learn how to protect themselves, reasons they didn't always say out loud. Whitney never charged $1, not once. She'd say the same thing every first class. I'm not here to make you dangerous. I'm here to make sure nobody ever makes you a victim. That was it. No speech, no philosophy. Just that one sentence. And then they got to work. During the day, Whitney lived small. She drove a dented Civic with a cracked taillight. She wore the same 3 jackets in rotation. She shared a 2-bedroom house with her mother, Dolores, 71, diabetic, and stubborn about everything except taking her insulin on time. Dolores needed surgery. The bills were already past $30,000. Whitney had been paying them off in pieces, $200 here, $300 there, like filling a swimming pool with a coffee cup. Nobody in Millfield knew what Whitney did before the community center. Nobody knew about the 15 years she spent on a military base 40 minutes north. A base that didn't show up on most maps. A place where Navy SEAL candidates, the toughest men in the American military, came to learn hand-to-hand combat. Whitney was their instructor. Not an assistant, not a helper, the lead instructor. She designed the curriculum. She ran the drills. She taught men twice her size how to disarm, how to control, how to finish a fight in seconds. Krav Maga, joint locks, combatives, pressure points that could shut a body down before the brain even registered what happened. 15 years, 0 public record. Classified program. When it ended, Whitney came home, opened her little class, and never said a word about any of it. Now let's talk about Craig Brennan. 45, 6'2", 220 pounds of muscle and ego. 4th-degree black belt in Taekwondo, owner of Brennan Elite Combat Academy, the biggest martial arts franchise in the region. 3 locations, 1,200 paying members, a trophy wall so long it needed its own hallway. Craig was loud. Craig was everywhere. Local news interviews, sponsored MMA events, a YouTube channel with highlight reels of him demolishing sparring partners half his skill level. In Millfield, Craig Brennan was untouchable. He also had a plan. The community center sat on a piece of land Craig had been watching for 2 years. Prime location, cheap, perfect for his 4th gym. He'd already filed preliminary paperwork with the town council, a rezoning request that would turn Whitney's building into a parking lot. He didn't need Whitney gone. He needed her invisible, small enough to ignore, weak enough to push out without anyone noticing. So when she showed up at his gym that night to ask about the lease, to try to negotiate, to find some middle ground, he didn't see a threat. He saw an opportunity. A chance to humiliate her publicly. To make her so small that when the council vote came, nobody would stand up for her. He had money. He had lawyers. He had the town council on speed dial. She had a dented Civic and a room full of old mats. But Craig Brennan made one mistake that night, the kind you don't recover from. He assumed that quiet meant weak. The next morning, Whitney pulled into the community center parking lot and stopped. Every single one of her flyers, self-defense class schedules, contact info, sign-up sheets, had been ripped down. In their place, glossy posters. Brennan Elite Combat Academy. Grand expansion coming soon. Premium memberships available now. Pasted right over her door. She peeled one off. Underneath it, someone had written in black marker, "Time's up." That wasn't the worst part. By noon, Craig's gym had posted a video. Filmed the night before, the footage showed Whitney walking into his gym, but cut everything before her first sentence. No context, no lease conversation, just a black woman standing alone on a mat, looking lost, while Craig's voice played over it. She came in wanting to prove something, took one look at a real fighter, and walked right out. The caption read, "When keeping it real goes wrong." 200,000 views by dinner. The comments were worse. She looked like she was about to cry. "Stick to Zumba, sweetheart. This is what happens when you step out of your lane." Whitney sat in her car and read every single one. She didn't cry. She didn't call anyone. She just sat there with her phone in her lap until the screen went dark. The next evening, she unlocked the community center and set up the mats like always. 7:15. Class time. Nobody came. She waited 30 minutes. Then an hour. Then she called Tamika, her most consistent student, a mother of 3 who hadn't missed a session in 8 months. "Tamika, class started at 7. Silence on the other end. Then, "Whitney, I saw the video. Everybody saw it. Girls are saying if you couldn't stand up for yourself in that gym, how are you going to teach us to stand up for ourselves?" Whitney didn't answer right away. "I understand," she said, and hung up. She stood alone in that empty room, fluorescent lights buzzing, old mats still laid out in 2 neat rows. A room built for 20, holding no one. Craig Brennan hadn't thrown a single punch, and he'd already taken everything. Or so he thought. Craig Brennan didn't stop. He was just getting started. 3 days after the video, a noise complaint landed on the community center's desk, filed by Brennan Elite Combat Academy. The claim said Whitney's classes were causing disturbance to neighboring businesses after permitted hours. Whitney's classes ended at 8:30. The center's permit allowed activity until 9. Didn't matter. The complaint triggered an automatic review. The town inspector showed up on a Tuesday, took photos, wrote notes, told Whitney she'd need to pause evening operations until the review was complete. How long? She asked. Could be 2 weeks, could be 6. She lost her evening classes, the only time slot her students could attend. 1 week later, Craig made his next move. He showed up at the town council meeting, suit, tie, printed proposal, the whole performance. He stood at the podium and laid it out, a rezoning request for the block that included the community center, new commercial development, job creation, tax revenue, a 4th Brennan Elite location that would serve the whole community. He never mentioned Whitney's name. He didn't have to. Councilwoman Laura Bennett asked the only real question. What happens to the current tenants on that block? Craig smiled. Progress requires change, ma'am. We'll work with everyone to find appropriate alternatives. Appropriate alternatives. That was his way of saying, get out. The council voted to open a 60-day review period. Not an approval, not yet, but the clock was now ticking. Whitney found out from a neighbor, not from any official notice. Then came the second video. Craig posted it on a Friday night. Peak traffic, maximum eyes. He'd staged a reenactment of Whitney's visit to his gym, except this time he used one of his female students to play Whitney. The student wore old sweats, shuffled in with her head down, mumbled something about Elise. Craig played himself, arms crossed, towering, calm. I offered her a fair chance, he said to the camera afterward. She couldn't handle it. Some people want to play fighter, and some people are fighters. The video hit 400,000 views in 2 days. The comments section turned into a war zone, but not in Whitney's favor. She's running a scam class, taking up space that a real gym could use. Brennan's right. Let the professionals handle it. Craig's students started showing up outside the community center. Not threatening, just standing there. 2 or 3 at a time, wearing Brennan Elite hoodies, arms crossed, watching. Whitney's remaining students, the ones who hadn't already quit, saw them every time they walked in. One by one, they stopped coming. Within 2 weeks, Whitney's class was down to 0. Now here's what was happening behind closed doors. Craig sat in his office with his business partner, a man named Victor Wells. Brennan Elite's expansion wasn't just about a new gym. It was a real estate play. The community center's block had been undervalued for years. If Craig could get the rezoning approved and the tenants cleared, the land alone would triple in value. Victor pulled up the numbers on his laptop. If she fights this, it slows everything down. Council gets nervous. Timeline pushes to next year. Craig leaned back. She won't fight it. How do you know? Because I just took her students, her schedule, and her reputation. What's she got left? Victor paused. What if someone digs into why you're really pushing this? Craig didn't blink. Nobody cares about a broke woman running a free class in a building that should have been condemned 5 years ago. Trust me. One more push, and she's done. He was right about one thing. Nobody was paying attention. But he was wrong about Whitney. That same night, Whitney sat at her kitchen table. Dolores was asleep in the next room. The house was quiet, except for the oxygen machine humming through the wall. Whitney had her phone in front of her. She scrolled through the comments on Craig's second video, hundreds of them, calling her weak, calling her a fraud, calling her things she wouldn't repeat. She closed the phone, opened a drawer, pulled out a small wooden box she hadn't touched in years. Inside, a single photograph. Whitney, 15 years younger, standing in front of a group of 18 Navy SEAL candidates. She was the only woman in the frame, the only civilian, and every man in that photo was looking at her like she was the most dangerous person in the room. Because she was. She put the photo on the table, stared at it for a long time. Then her phone buzzed. A text from Nate Caldwell, a name she hadn't seen in 3 years. Retired SEAL, one of the first men she ever trained. Saw the videos. That guy has no idea who he's messing with. Call me. Whitney picked up the photo one more time, put it back in the box, closed the drawer. Then she called Nate. It rang twice. "Took you long enough," he said. "I wasn't sure I wanted to do this." And now? She looked toward her mother's room, listened to the oxygen machine, thought about the empty mats, the torn flyers, the students who stopped coming, the man who called her trash in front of 30 people and smiled while doing it. Now I'm sure. Good, because I've got a plan, and you're going to like it. She didn't smile. Whitney Ford never did anything with a smile. But for the first time in weeks, she sat up straight. And Craig Brennan, across town, pouring himself a glass of whiskey in his office, laughing at his own video, had absolutely no idea what was about to happen. The man who wanted her invisible had just made sure the whole world was about to see her. Nate Caldwell lived 40 minutes north. Small house, clean yard. A flagpole out front with a flag that never came down, not even in storms. Whitney drove up the next morning. They sat on his back porch with black coffee and no small talk. "He wants you angry," Nate said. "He wants you to swing first. Then he owns you. Lawsuit, assault charge, done. That's his play." "I know. So we don't give him that." Nate set down his mug. "You accept the fight, but on your terms. Neutral referee, signed mutual combat waiver, medical staff on site, everything documented, everything legal." Whitney shook her head. "He won't agree to all that." "He will, because his ego won't let him say no, not in front of a crowd, not on camera." She stared at the tree line for a long time. "And if I hurt him?" "You won't hurt him," Nate leaned forward. "You'll control him. There's a difference. That's what you taught us." Whitney said nothing for a while. The coffee went cold. "One more thing," Nate said. "My neighbor, Ruth Simmons, she's got a camera and steady hands. I want her filming everything, every angle, every second. No edited clips this time." Whitney nodded once. She wasn't walking into a fight. She was walking into a courtroom that didn't exist yet. Saturday night, Town Square. Millfield hadn't seen a crowd like this in years. 500 people, maybe more. Folding chairs lined 3 sides of a makeshift mat laid out on the concrete. Floodlights borrowed from the high school football field. A local radio host doing live commentary from a plastic table. 2 paramedics parked on the curb with their doors open. Craig Brennan made sure of that. He promoted it for 2 weeks. Flyers, social media, a countdown timer on his gym's website. Open challenge night. All are welcome. He even had Brennan Elite t-shirts printed for the occasion, free with any donation. This was his stage, his moment, his town. He walked out at 8 o'clock sharp. Blackie, Fourth-degree belt tied tight, arms wide, soaking it in. His students chanted his name. He shadowboxed for the crowd, spinning back kicks, fast combinations, a flying knee that made the front row lean back. The crowd loved it. Then the radio host leaned into his microphone. And his opponent tonight, from right here in Millfield, Whitney Ford. Silence. Whitney walked out from behind the paramedic van. No gi, no banner, gray sweatpants, a plain black compression top, hands taped, hair pulled back, no expression on her face. A few people clapped. Most just stared. Craig grinned the second he saw her, leaned into the radio host's mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a hand. It takes guts to show up." Laughter. Light applause. Before they stepped on the mat, Nate Caldwell walked to center stage holding a clipboard. Both fighters have signed a mutual combat waiver. A neutral referee has been agreed upon. Medical staff is on standby. This is a legal, consensual sparring match. Craig waved it off. Yeah, let's go." From the far side of the crowd, Ruth Simmons pressed record. 2 cameras, one on a tripod, one handheld. Every angle covered. The referee, a retired boxing judge from Richmond named Earl Tucker, called them to center mat. Craig bounced on his toes. Loose. Showboating. He winked at someone in the front row. Whitney stood flat-footed, hands low, almost relaxed, like she was waiting for a bus. Earl Tucker dropped his hand. "Fight!" Craig moved first, a fast jab to test range, followed by a roundhouse kick aimed at Whitney's ribs. Textbook taekwondo. Fast. Clean. The kind of kick that ended most of his sparring sessions in under a minute. It never landed. Whitney shifted her weight, just barely, maybe 2 inches, and the kick sliced past her. Before Craig could reset his stance, she was already inside his guard. What happened next took exactly 11 seconds. She trapped his right arm at the elbow, rotated her hips, dropped her center of gravity, and executed a controlled armbar takedown so clean it looked rehearsed. Craig's back hit the mat with a sound the front row would talk about for weeks. Not a slap. A deep, heavy thud, like a bag of concrete dropped from a truck. The air left his lungs. You could hear it. For 1 full second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the crowd erupted. Not cheering. Not yet. Just noise. Pure shock. 500 people processing the same thing at once. The biggest fighter in town was flat on his back, and the woman in gray sweatpants had put him there without breaking a sweat. Craig rolled to his side, got up. His face was red, not from pain, from something worse. Embarrassment. "Again," he said. Earl Tucker looked at Whitney. She nodded. "Fight." This time, Craig didn't showboat. He came in low, MMA stance, hands up. He threw a straight right, hard, fast, aimed at her jaw. Whitney parried it with her left forearm. One motion. The sound was sharp. Bone on bone. Then she hooked his front ankle with her right foot, posted her hand on his shoulder, and swept him off his feet. He hit the mat in 8 seconds. This time, the sound was different, louder, wetter. His shoulder blade caught the edge of the mat and slammed bare concrete. Craig didn't get up right away. The crowd went quiet again. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slow at first, then faster. Then the whole square was on its feet. Whitney stood over him. She didn't raise her fist, didn't flex, didn't even look at the crowd. She reached down and offered Craig her hand. He slapped it away. She pulled her hand back, nodded once, walked off the mat.
That was it. Ruth Simmons stopped recording 11 minutes after she started. She had everything.
By 10 o'clock, Nate Caldwell uploaded the full, unedited footage to YouTube. Title: Black Belt Dares Woman to Fight. Watch what happens. By midnight, 2 million views. By morning, 6 million. The comments came like a flood. Who is this woman? 11 seconds. 11! She moved like a machine. Somebody get this lady a Netflix deal. Then the hashtag started. Hashtag, Who is Whitney Ford? It trended locally by Sunday afternoon. Nationally by Monday morning. Clips were everywhere. The armbar takedown. The sweep. The moment she offered her hand and he slapped it away. That clip alone got shared 400,000 times. Sports channels picked it up. News outlets called the Millfield town office looking for comment. A retired UFC commentator watched the footage and posted his analysis. That's not karate. That's not taekwondo. That's military combatives. Whoever trained this woman trained professionals. He had no idea how right he was. By Tuesday, Whitney Ford had more name recognition than anyone in Millfield's history. More than Craig Brennan. More than the mayor. More than the town itself. She didn't do a single interview, didn't post a single comment, didn't even watch the video. She went home, made dinner for Dolores, set out the mats at the community center, even though no students had come back yet. She kept the lights on and the door unlocked, just in case. Meanwhile, Craig Brennan sat in his office with the door closed and the blinds drawn. His phone was ringing. He let it ring. His business partner Victor called 6 times. He didn't answer. He watched the video once, closed the tab, opened it again, watched the 11-second clip on a loop. Then he picked up a different phone, called his attorney, Bradley Moore. "I want her buried," he said. "File everything. Assault, damages, whatever sticks." Bradley paused. "Craig, you signed the waiver." "I don't care. Find something. Make something. I want her done." He hung up. The man who wanted to be Millfield's king had just been flattened in front of his entire kingdom. And instead of walking away, he chose war. Unbelievable. This man got dropped twice on his own mat, and now he's pressing charges? Imagine you get humiliated on your live stream, and your first move is to play victim. What would you do if someone pulled this on you? The lawsuit landed on a Wednesday morning. Whitney opened her mailbox expecting a medical bill. Instead, she found a certified letter from the law office of Bradley Moore and Associates, Richmond, Virginia. 2 claims. 1 criminal complaint for aggravated assault. 1 civil suit seeking damages for physical injury, emotional distress, and reputational harm. The number at the bottom? $350,000. Whitney read it twice, then sat down on the porch steps and read it again. $350,000. She didn't have $350 in her checking account. By Thursday, Craig Brennan was on every local news channel. He sat in a leather chair in Bradley Moore's office, arm in a sling, the same shoulder that hit the concrete. His voice was low, careful, rehearsed. "I organized a community event, a charity night. She showed up and attacked me. I tried to defend myself, but she kept going. It was violent. It was unprovoked, and I have the injuries to prove it." The interviewer leaned in. But there are videos online showing you challenged her to fight. Craig shook his head slowly. Those videos are edited, taken out of context. I never challenged anyone. I invited her to a friendly demonstration. What she did was assault. Bradley Moore sat beside him the entire time, nodding, quiet, letting Craig perform. And perform he did. The local news ran Craig's version at 6 o'clock, then again at 11. The segment used a 30-second clip from the fight, but only the part where Whitney took Craig down. No audio of the dare, no crowd context, no waiver signing. Just a woman slamming a man onto concrete. The headline? Local gym owner files assault charges after violent confrontation at town square event. By Friday morning, the internet had split in half. Half the comments defended Whitney. He dared her. Watch the full video. This man is lying. The other half turned on her. She went too far. That wasn't self-defense. That was an attack. Lock her up. And Craig's team made sure that second half got louder. Brennan Elite's social media account posted a highlight reel. Craig's charity work, his youth programs, photos of him coaching kids. Caption: This is the man she attacked. A mentor, a father figure, a community leader. 48 hours after the lawsuit was filed, Whitney Ford went from viral hero to public villain. Her phone blew up, reporters calling, bloggers requesting statements, true crime podcasts asking if she'd tell her side. She didn't answer any of them. The community center received a formal notice the following Monday. The town council had accelerated the rezoning review due to ongoing public safety concerns related to the tenant. Whitney's lease was now under a 30-day termination review. She was losing the building. That same week, Dolores had a doctor's appointment. Whitney drove her, sat in the waiting room filling out insurance paperwork. When the billing clerk pulled up their file, she paused. "Ma'am, it looks like your secondary claim was denied." "Denied? On what grounds?" "It says here, pending legal proceedings involving the policyholder. They've flagged the account." Whitney stared at the clerk. My mother's insurance was denied because of a lawsuit against me? The clerk wouldn't make eye contact. "I can give you the appeals number." Whitney took the paper, folded it, put it in her jacket pocket. Didn't say another word the entire drive home. That night, she sat at the kitchen table. Dolores was asleep. The house was silent except for the oxygen machine and the refrigerator humming. She spread everything out in front of her. The lawsuit, the insurance denial, the lease termination notice, the stack of medical bills held together with a rubber band. Every door was closing, one by one, methodical, like someone had drawn up a checklist. Because someone had. Behind closed doors at Brennan Elite, Craig and Bradley Moore sat across from each other in Craig's office. Bradley had a tablet open, scrolling through coverage. The narrative's working. Public sentiment is shifting 70-30 against her. If we keep this pressure up through the court date, she'll settle. She has to. She can't afford a lawyer. Craig nodded, but he wasn't smiling. He hadn't smiled since Saturday night, since the mat. "What about the waiver?" he asked. Bradley didn't look up. "What about it?" "The waiver she signed, the one Caldwell brought." "It's handled." "Handled how?" Bradley set down the tablet, looked at Craig directly. "The waiver was collected by your staff at the event. It's been misplaced. These things happen." Craig stared at him. "Misplaced?" "Misplaced." A long silence. "And the footage? The full footage?" "Her people uploaded a version, but the original.
your live stream, your cameras. That's your property. You control what exists and what doesn't. Craig leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms. So it's her word against mine. It's her word against a respected business owner with 1,200 members, 3 locations, and a council endorsement. Bradley picked up his tablet again. It's not even close. Craig finally smiled, small, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes.
Bury the waiver footage. She signed nothing that matters. Bradley nodded, made a note, moved on. That was the plan. Starve her out. Drown her in legal fees. Take the building. Kill the story. Make Whitney Ford disappear. Not with fists, but with paperwork. And it was working. Whitney had no lawyer, no money for one, no students, no classes, a mother who needed surgery she couldn't pay for, an insurance company that wouldn't return her calls, a town council that had already picked a side. She was alone, or so Craig believed. What he didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that Nate Caldwell had been making phone calls of his own. Not to reporters, not to lawyers, to people with clearance levels that didn't appear on Google. Former teammates, officers who'd served alongside him, men and women who had trained under Whitney Ford and remembered exactly who she was and what she could do. One of those calls reached a JAG attorney at Naval Station Norfolk, a woman named Captain Diane Prescott. She listened for 12 minutes without interrupting. When Nate finished, she said one thing: "Send me everything." Somewhere in a filing cabinet inside a secure building on a military base, a sealed personnel file sat untouched for years. A file with Whitney Ford's name on it. A file that documented every class she taught, every curriculum she wrote, every SEAL candidate she trained. That file was about to be opened. And when it was, Craig Brennan's entire case would collapse like a house built on sand. But he didn't know that yet. He was still smiling. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights that buzzed just loud enough to notice. County Courthouse, Millfield, Virginia, 9:15 on a Tuesday morning. Every seat was taken. Craig Brennan sat on the left side, navy suit, clean shave. The sling was gone, but he kept rolling his shoulder like it still hurt. Bradley Moore sat beside him with 2 binders, a tablet, and the calm face of a man who'd done this 100 times. Whitney sat on the right side, alone at first glance. A public defender named Howard Grant had taken her case pro bono after seeing the viral video. He was 61, quiet, the kind of lawyer who didn't talk unless the sentence mattered. Dolores sat in the front row of the gallery, oxygen tank beside her chair, hands folded in her lap. She hadn't missed a single day of the pretrial hearings. She wasn't going to miss this one. Judge Patricia Colton presided, 22 years on the bench, known for 2 things: she never rushed and she never bluffed. Bradley Moore went first. He was smooth, controlled. He walked the courtroom through Craig's version: a community event, a charity fundraiser, an unprovoked attack by a woman with a clear pattern of hostility. He showed the edited 30-second clip, Whitney taking Craig down, the thud, the concrete, the shoulder. "Your Honor, my client extended an invitation in good faith. What he received was a violent, premeditated assault. Ms. Ford came to that event with one intention: to cause harm." He paused. Let it sit. "We are seeking full damages: medical, emotional, reputational. Mr. Brennan's career, his business, his standing in this community, all of it has suffered because of one woman's unchecked aggression." Craig nodded from his seat, jaw tight, eyes forward. The picture of a man wronged. A few people in the gallery nodded with him. Then Howard Grant stood up. He didn't rush, didn't raise his voice. He adjusted his glasses, picked up a single folder, and walked to the center of the courtroom like a man taking a Sunday stroll. Your Honor, I'd like to begin with a video. Bradley stiffened. Objection! We've already presented the relevant footage. This is different footage, Your Honor. Unedited, full length, captured by an independent witness who was present at the event. Judge Colton looked at Bradley, then at Howard. I'll allow it. Howard turned to the screen, pressed play. Ruth Simmons's footage, every second of it. The video started 6 minutes before the fight. It showed Craig on the microphone, hyping the crowd. It showed Whitney arriving. It showed Nate Caldwell reading the waiver aloud, both signatures clearly visible. It showed Craig waving it off, saying, yeah, let's go. It showed Craig throwing the first jab, the first kick. Whitney responding, not attacking, redirecting, controlling. 2 clean takedowns with 0 unnecessary force. And it showed the moment after. Whitney reaching down to help Craig up, Craig slapping her hand away. The courtroom was dead silent. Howard let the video end, didn't say a word for 5 seconds. Then he turned back to the judge. The waiver was signed. The challenge was issued by Mr. Brennan, publicly, on a microphone, in front of 500 witnesses. Ms. Ford responded with controlled, proportional force. She did not strike first. She did not pursue after the takedown. She offered assistance, which was refused. Bradley jumped in. That footage has not been authenticated. It's time-stamped, geotagged, and the original file is available for forensic review, Howard said without turning around. Would you like to challenge it? Bradley didn't answer. Howard opened his folder. I'd also like to enter 3 sworn depositions. He read them one at a time. Commander Alan Drake, United States Navy, retired. 17 years of service. Whitney Ford was the lead hand-to-hand combat instructor for SEAL qualification training from 2004 to 2019. She designed the program. She trained over 300 candidates. She is, without question, one of the most skilled close combat instructors I have ever worked with. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Voss, United States Navy, active duty. I served as program liaison during Ms. Ford's tenure. Her curriculum was adopted as a standard training module across 2 additional installations. Her record is exemplary. Her conduct impeccable. Master Chief Nate Caldwell, retired. I was one of her first students. She taught me how to survive. She taught all of us. And what I saw in that video, that wasn't violence. That was a woman using the minimum force necessary to control a threat. Exactly the way she taught us. Howard set the depositions down. Your Honor, Miss Ford is not a random civilian who lost her temper. She is a classified military combat instructor with 15 years of service to the United States Navy. The techniques she used on that mat are the exact techniques she taught to the most elite soldiers in the American military. She didn't attack Mr. Brennan. She managed him. The gallery shifted. Whispers. Movement. Someone in the back said, "Oh my God," loud enough for the whole room to hear. Howard wasn't done. One final piece of evidence, Your Honor. He held up a single document. This is a city planning record filed by Brennan Elite Combat Academy, a rezoning request for the block containing the Millfield Community Center. Filing date, March 14th, 6 months before the event at the town square.
he let that land.
Mr. Brennan didn't challenge Miss Ford because she walked into his gym. He targeted her because she was standing in the way of a real estate deal. The harassment, the videos, the noise complaint, the council pressure, all of it was designed to remove her from a building he wanted to demolish. Bradley stood up. Your Honor, this is speculation. It's a public record, Counselor. Howard didn't flinch. Filed under your client's name. Judge Colton raised her hand. The room went quiet. She looked at Craig Brennan for a long time. He didn't look back. I've seen enough, she said. She took 12 minutes to deliver her ruling. All criminal charges dismissed. The assault complaint? Frivolous, unsupported, and contradicted by unedited evidence. The civil suit? Thrown out. And she added something Craig didn't expect. This court finds that Mr. Brennan's filing constitutes a retaliatory action intended to intimidate and silence the defendant. I am referring this matter for further review regarding potential abuse of process. She set down her gavel. Whitney didn't move. She didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't pump her fist. She turned around, looked at Dolores in the front row. Dolores was crying, quietly, hands still folded, oxygen tank still humming. Whitney walked to her, knelt down, took her mother's hands. It's over, Mama.
Dolores squeezed her daughter's fingers and whispered, Baby, it was never even close. Behind them, Craig Brennan stared at the table in front of him. Bradley Moore was already packing his binders. Neither of them said a word. The man who wanted Whitney Ford erased had just watched a courtroom full of people learn exactly who she was. And now, the whole country was about to find out.
The verdict hit the internet before Whitney even left the courthouse parking lot. Ruth Simmons posted the courtroom footage, not the fight, not the takedown. The moment Judge Colton said, frivolous, unsupported, and contradicted by unedited evidence. 15 words. That's all it took. 4 million views in 48 hours. The clip got shared by legal analysts, military veterans, civil rights pages, women's self-defense advocates, and every major news outlet in the country. Not because it was loud, because it was quiet. A judge, a gavel, and a man who had nothing left to say. Hashtag Justice for Whitney started trending by Wednesday night. By Thursday, it merged with a second hashtag. Hashtag Stand Up Like Whitney. That one spread faster. It wasn't about the court case anymore. It was about something bigger. Women posted videos of themselves in self-defense classes. Veterans shared stories of instructors who changed their lives. Mothers tagged their daughters. Daughters tagged their friends. 10 million impressions in 1 week. Whitney didn't post a single thing. The fallout for Craig Brennan came fast, and it came from every direction. First, the franchise. Brennan Elite Combat Academy operated under a national martial arts licensing body. Within 72 hours of the verdict, the board launched an internal review. The rezoning documents, the fabricated assault claim, the destroyed waiver, all of it was now public record. The board revoked Craig's franchise license on the following Monday. All 3 locations were required to remove the Brennan Elite name within 30 days. Then the council. Councilwoman Laura Bennett, the same woman who asked Craig about current tenants at the rezoning meeting, introduced a motion to permanently deny the rezoning request. It passed unanimously. The community center block was reclassified as protected community space. Then the students, 1,200 paying members, Within 2 weeks, over 400 had canceled, some quietly, some loudly. One former student posted a video of himself cutting his Brennan Elite belt in half. It got 2 million views. Craig didn't make a public statement. Bradley Moore released a 3-sentence press release calling the situation a misunderstanding that spiraled beyond reason. No apology, no accountability. Craig closed 2 of his 3 gyms within 60 days. The third, his original location, stayed open, but the parking lot was empty most nights. The man who wanted to own a whole city block couldn't fill a single room. Meanwhile, Whitney went back to work. She unlocked the community center on a Monday morning. Same sticky door, same fluorescent lights, same old mats. But when she got inside, something was different. There were people waiting. Not her old students, new ones, women she'd never met. Some drove from neighboring towns, some drove from out of state. A retired Marine showed up from North Carolina with her daughter. A college student came from D.C. with a notebook full of questions. And then Nate Caldwell walked in. Behind him, 6 former SEALs, all men Whitney had trained. They didn't say much. They just started unrolling mats. Whitney's class didn't just come back, it multiplied. Within a month, she had more students than the room could hold. They ran 2 sessions a night, then 3. The town allocated a second building, a former recreation hall 2 blocks east, and Whitney expanded into it. She called the program the Ford Defense Initiative. Free, open to anyone, no membership fees, no belt system, no trophies, just training. Real training. The kind that could save your life. Nate and his former teammates volunteered as guest instructors. A local doctor offered free physicals for every new student. The VFW donated equipment. A women's shelter in Richmond partnered with Whitney to run satellite classes for survivors of domestic violence. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was held on a Saturday afternoon in October. Small crowd. No cameras. Whitney's request. Dolores was there. Wheelchair. Oxygen tank. A new coat Whitney had bought her the week before. She sat in the front row, same spot she'd held in the courtroom, and watched her daughter cut the red ribbon with a pair of kitchen scissors. She didn't clap. She just smiled. The kind of smile that holds 42 years of prayers inside it. Whitney looked at her mother, then at the room full of women ready to learn. She said what she always said. I'm not here to make you dangerous. I'm here to make sure nobody ever makes you a victim. Then she got to work. But this story doesn't end with Whitney. It ends with what she started. 6 months after the ribbon cutting, the Ford Defense Initiative operated in 12 cities across 4 states. Whitney didn't franchise it, didn't brand it, didn't sell merchandise. She built a simple website with a single page, class locations, times, and 1 sentence at the top. Free. Always. Every class was full. Every single one. In Richmond, a woman named Keisha walked into her first session on a Tuesday night. She was 34, 2 kids, working 2 jobs. She told the instructor she'd never thrown a punch in her life. 8 weeks later, a man grabbed her arm in a parking garage. She broke his grip in under 2 seconds, walked to her car, drove home, put her kids to bed, then sat on the kitchen floor and cried. Not from fear, but from the realization that for the first time in her life, she wasn't helpless. She posted about it the next morning. No names, no details, just one line. Whitney Ford's class saved my life last night. It got shared 600,000 times. In Norfolk, active duty sailors started attending the initiative's weekend sessions. Their commanding officer called Whitney directly and asked if the program could be adapted for base personnel. Whitney said yes. She didn't charge $1. Within 3 months, the program was running on 2 military installations. The base commander sent Whitney a handwritten letter. 2 sentences. Your training saved lives overseas before. Now, it's saving them at home. In Atlanta, a high school principal invited Ford defense instructors to teach an after-school program for teenage girls. Enrollment tripled in the first semester. Disciplinary incidents dropped by 40%. Not because the girls learned to fight, because they learned they didn't have to be afraid. The principal told a reporter, "These girls walk different now. Head up, shoulders back. That's not fighting. That's freedom." In Chicago, a domestic violence shelter partnered with the initiative to offer weekly sessions for survivors. The waiting list hit 200 names in the first month. A social worker there said something Whitney never forgot. Your class is the first place some of these women have ever been told they're allowed to take up space. 3 senators cited the Ford Defense Initiative during a congressional hearing on community safety funding. One of them read Keisha's story out loud on the Senate floor. The room went quiet, the same way that Town Square did. Not because of what was said, but because of what it meant. A bill was proposed. The Community Self-Defense Access Act. Federal funding for free self-defense programs in underserved neighborhoods. It hadn't passed yet, but it was on the table, and Whitney Ford's name was in the first paragraph. Hashtag Stand Up Like Whitney never stopped trending. It just evolved. Mothers said it to daughters before their first day of school. Women whispered it to themselves before hard conversations. Veterans tattooed it on their forearms. It showed up on handmade signs at rallies, on bumper stickers in small towns, on sticky notes pressed to bathroom mirrors in college dorms. It stopped being about Whitney. It became about everyone who ever stood still when someone tried to make them small. As for Craig Brennan, he was last seen coaching a youth baseball team at a community park in the next county over. No cameras, no students, no empire. Just a man with a bucket of baseballs and a folding chair. His name still pulled up the courtroom footage on the first page of Google. It probably always would. Someone asked Whitney once in an interview if she had anything to say to Craig. She thought about it for a few seconds, then said, "I hope he's teaching those kids better than he taught himself." That was it. Nothing else. She moved on to the next question like his name meant nothing. And maybe it didn't. Not anymore. Dolores Ford passed away the following spring, quietly, in her sleep. The oxygen machine was still humming when Whitney found her in the morning. At the funeral, Whitney didn't speak. She sat in the front pew and held her mother's Bible, the same one Dolores had carried to the courtroom, the same one she held during the ribbon cutting. Nate Caldwell gave the only eulogy. He kept it short. Dolores Ford raised a woman who made the world safer. That's a legacy most people only dream about. The church was standing room only. Half the people there had never met Dolores. They came because of what her daughter built. Because somewhere along the way, Whitney Ford stopped being a story and became something else entirely. She became proof. Proof that quiet doesn't mean weak, that broke doesn't mean broken, that the person everyone overlooks might be the most dangerous one in the room. Not dangerous because she wanted to hurt anyone. Dangerous because she refused to be erased. Man, imagine someone calls you trash to your face in front of 30 people, and you can't say a word. That's what Whitney lived. If that was you, what would you do? Drop it below. Like and share if this one hit different. Subscribe. Next story's even crazier.